So in this lesson from the book of Deuteronomy, it's, God threatens. It's a harsh word. I mean, God reminds Israel of his grace and his prior act of love for them, his deliverance of them from slavery and death. And he says, basically, after you have enjoyed the fruits of my love and my mercy for you, basically don't get too big for your britches. Remember where all that came from. And at the end, he solemnly warns Israel today that you will perish like the nations that the Lord is destroying before you. You shall perish because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God. And ultimately, I see in this word of the Lord through Moses and Deuteronomy has something that, in a sense, relativizes all cultural claims to some sort of independent existence apart from God's grace. That is, any culture, any society that builds a structure of belief and behavior for itself that is not rooted in God's will for love and steadfast love and mercy, God's compassion and his forgiveness is something that is going to have to be broken so that God can reform it, so that it can be reformed, i.e. reformation, right? And so that in a sense, everything that participates in a sense, everything that is built apart from God is old creation stuff. And that this word of the Lord is ultimately fulfilled in Jesus, who takes the broken pieces of Israel's hope, like those broken pieces of bread, and places them in the baskets, gathers them together so that not one bit is lost, but those broken fragments need to be brought together in the love that we have in Jesus. As St. Paul says in Ephesians, it is only Jesus who breaks down the wall of hostility between the peoples. It is in Jesus in whom we become one humanity, not just instead of two, but instead of many humanities. So, in a sense, this word of Deuteronomy to the people of Israel is something that in which we need to subordinate all our other allegiances to our primary, and really, when you get right down to it, essentially our only allegiance to the Lord who has saved us, the Lord who pours out his grace and calls us to be his people, and his people in a world that does not recognize his ways. And we are called to be the ambassadors of a foreign kingdom, right? And, resident aliens, as First Peter would say, and in which we make a witness to the ways of our kingdom and think of our churches as embassies, and you all are secret agents of the kingdom of God, seeking to subvert and break open the ways of the culture in which we live that are not in alignment with God's vision for an authentic humanity. And ultimately, it is God's vision that can, will, and must prevail, and it's going to have to do whatever it has to do to all that which opposes the will of God for love and mercy and human flourishing. A reading from the book of Deuteronomy. Moses convened all Israel and said to them, "Take care that you do not forget the Lord your God by failing to keep his commandments, his ordinances, and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. When you have eaten your fill and have built fine houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks have multiplied, and your silver and gold is multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then do not exalt yourself, forgetting the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness, an arid wasteland with poisonous snakes and scorpions. He made water flow for you from flint rock, and fed you in the wilderness with manna that your ancestors did not know, to humble you and to test you, and in the end to do you good. Do not say to yourself, 'My power and the might of my own hand have gotten me this wealth.' But remember the Lord your God, For it is he who gives you power to get wealth, so that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your ancestors, as he is doing today. If you do forget the Lord your God and follow other gods to serve and worship them, I solemnly warn you today that you shall surely perish. Like the nations that the Lord is destroying before you, so shall you perish, because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.